Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the World Talk. Today, this is our opinion piece. We will be discussing the people that President-elect Joe Biden has nominated for his cabinet position and cabinet level positions within his administration, taking effect on January 20th, 2021.
All right, I think I should kick us off with perhaps one of the biggest names on the list, which is former Secretary of State John Kerry. Now, John Kerry is in his 70s. He was a 2004 Democratic nominee for the presidential election, which he lost to incumbent George W. Bush. In the past, in the recent times, John Kerry has heavily criticized Trump and Trump's ideas and policies, stating that he has divided the nation, as so many other Democrats have. He was originally anti-nuclear power for quite a long time. However, in the wake of recent policies such as the Green New Deal and the resurgence of interest in trying to go green as a country, he now supports nuclear and environmental deals.
Now, it is important to mention that he has been nominated for Presidential Envoy for Climate, which is a completely new position just made up by Biden for the increasing importance of climate change and global warming. And this is his promise. He ran on a promise to help go green or put America on transition to go green. And that's how he did it. I do not know if former Secretary of State Kerry is the right man for the job. I don't know if he has a lot of background in climate, and I bet you there were many other people who might have been a bit more worth it.
To my knowledge, Kerry does not really have a background in environmental sciences. He is nearly he's a very well-known name. He's known for his endeavors as Secretary of State. And he did run on a pretty moderate Democratic platform back in 2004 with the idea of sort of recovering from the Bush era. However, he was quite a lackluster candidate with not a lot of motivation behind him, and that led to Bush's re-election.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that this is connections that he made as Secretary of State. He was one of the people, he was a person who signed the Green New Deal.
It was one of the Green New Deal, it was the UN Paris Agreement.
The UN Paris Agreement, sorry, my bad. And
hopefully the Green New Deal.
And so, I think it's his connections he made with foreign, leaders and governments that, propelled him to be nominated for this position.
Could be quite valuable. Yeah.
And moving on to possibly one of the most important cabinet members in a president's cabinet is Secretary of State nominee Antony J. Blinken. Now, Blinken, in my opinion, is one of the people most, prepared for the job of Secretary of State. He was Deputy Secretary of State in the Clinton administration. I believe he is currently a global affairs analyst for CNN. He does believe China is an American competitor, and he is pro-international cooperation. And what do you think of Blinken?
Well, as with many of, actually quite a few of Biden's cabinet picks, I haven't done a lot of research. However, I do know a bit about Antony J. Blinken, and I personally don't like him because I think he's a bit of a warmonger. I think that, he did push for the 2003 invasion of Iraq by the United States. He pushed Obama, during Obama's presidency, to join NATO in bombing Libya, which did lead to the sort of modern slave state that Libya has now become. It's a very unstable, very dictated country. Not necessarily dictated, but it is a very aggressive and violent country. And he does still, to this day, oppose the removal of US troops from Syria, which I cannot even begin to fathom why. There have been so many arguments against it. It just baffles me. I'm personally not too excited to see what he'll do on the world stage, especially with regards to the Middle East. But he's better than any Secretary of State we've had under Trump. Most of these nominees for the cabinet are better than any of Trump's picks.
Now, regarding to his vote for the 2003 invasion of Iraq, I do remember back in 2003 that was not an unpopular opinion.
Well, yes, but just because it isn't unpopular doesn't necessarily make it right.
I do, based on the extenuating circumstances and everything that happened with the 2001 9/11 bombings, I do believe the idea behind the invasion was correct, or maybe not to the same extent which had happened, and not the execution of it. But
well, let's not forget that the idea was in a sense, we don't want to get into a whole piece about the Iraq War, obviously, but it was in a sense motivated a little bit by a bit of racism, by a bit of money as well. There were resources to be had and land to be taken. It's a very complex geopolitical conflict that went on for quite a long time. The key point to take away is, even though he supported it, I don't think that puts him in the right any more than anyone else at the time. I mean, I think everyone who voted for it or has had voiced support for it was in the wrong. You know, we still have quite a few notable figures around in politics today who did oppose it at the time, such as a notable Senator Bernie Sanders.
Yeah,
but
we're not
let's
discussing
not get
Bernie
into that.
Sanders.
Of course not.
Anyways, it's also fair to mention, while Secretary of State nominee Blinken was born in the United States, he grew up in Paris, in France, because his mother moved there, meaning he is fluent in French. However, back when he was growing up, the United States was extremely unpopular in Europe, and especially in France and Paris. So he has grown up he grew up with experiences of being an American abroad, and especially in a place where they are not very well liked. So I think that, that develops a personality apt for a diplomat. He has been a diplomat most of his life. As I said, he was prepared for it as Deputy Secretary of State.
Well, multinationalism is a very important trait for diplomats to have. I do have to agree with you in that sense.
Anyways, we will see if he is confirmed by the Senate. I do believe Biden did not nominate Susan Rice due to Republican backlash to it.
Concern over backlash. She would not.
We will see if he is confirmed by the Senate and whether he is any better. I do believe he's better than current Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
Yep. Well, moving on. Let's move on to Biden's pick for Treasury Secretary, which is Janet Yellen. Now, Janet Yellen was a labor market specialist. She was the chair of the Federal Reserve and led groundwork for the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years in the United States at the time. She does currently support government intervention for COVID-related poverty. So she is one of the people who's taking a look at the way that the COVID pandemic has been affecting poor people and those who are not economically able to persist through times like lockdown, and saying, how can we fix this? How can we do better? And again, Yellen is one of the people that I don't have a particularly large amount of knowledge on, but I have taken a look at her policies, at her past, and she doesn't seem like too terrible of a candidate, especially for Treasury Secretary.
She is what she has called herself a Keynesian economist, as opposed to laissez-faire. And she is what, at least in economic terms, she is a dove as opposed to a hawk. She believes that during, like as we said, she supports government intervention during COVID-related programs. She supports the money, while a hawk would be more wary of spending said money. And I believe it's these traits that have led to her being voiced the biggest backlash, at least from the GOP, and has also been welcomed by the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. It is still unsure whether she will be nominated. We still don't know who controls the Senate starting in January.
Yep, well, Treasury Secretary, I mean, I'm just glad she's not one of those laissez-faire politicians. In America's past, laissez-faire policies haven't really boded too well for the country and have led into some pretty dark times. So I'm okay with this pick of Biden. I think that, obviously, I consider myself to be progressive. I feel like there could be a lot more. There's a lot of room for what could be desired, but it's not terrible, and again, significantly better than what Trump has put on the table.
It's also safe to mention that, as she said, she is a dove, but she can turn into a hawk if the circumstances do demand it. Moving on to Biden's nominee for Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, being the first immigrant to ever hold that position. As you know, you do not need to be a natural-born American citizen to serve on the cabinet, only to be president and vice president. So he will be the first immigrant to hold said position. He wants to roll back Trump's immigration policies, and he wants to and will need to rebuild the agencies he sees are suffering from vacancies and scandals. What do you think of Alejandro Mayorkas?
I think he has some good policies on the table. I think I think it's pretty admirable that not just Mayorkas, but a lot of Biden's picks have been diverse, and while I personally disagree with the whole concept of identity politics, I think it's important to have representation in the government, and in that sense, I can slightly respect Biden's picks, even if many of them I don't agree with them politically, because while they might be diverse, they are ideologically the same, many of them. But Mayorkas, not too terrible. I am iffy on his history with immigration. He was responsible, sort of the architect of many of the Obama-era deportation policies that led to Obama getting the nickname Deporter-in-Chief. You often hear about cages and these sort of these barbaric conditions that illegal immigrants sometimes have to face when they're being deported. Those were, to my knowledge, a brainchild of Mayorkas and trying to be quote unquote efficient. So I'm not entirely too when it comes to his human rights views. I'm not entirely too sure about that. But again, as with most of Biden's picks, I can only be hopeful. That's all I can do.
Moving on to Jake Sullivan, President-elect Biden's national security nominee. He will be the youngest person to ever hold that position at only 44 years old. He wants to restructure the national security and to prioritize COVID-19, and he wants to repair international relations with the U.S. allies, which of course we know were deteriorated or basically bombed because of, tanked because of Trump's, isolationist policies. Now, it is interesting that national advisor, security advisor, is the youngest person in Biden's cabinet so far. When I picture national advisor, I mean someone who has a lot of experience under their belt.
I think it's a good thing. I think, especially compared to in the past what we've seen with policy and lawmakers, I think it's good to have a fresh face, relatively speaking, someone who is not necessarily obviously in tune with, I'd say, our generation or with the millennial generation, like the squad. No, I think it's good that Jake Sullivan is being brought in as a little bit more of a younger perspective, someone who can take a look at everything and have a bit more of a clear-minded response to it. Somebody who is, I have seen in the past, sharp, quick, and pretty smart. Actually, I do like Jake Sullivan quite a bit. That's again a Biden pick I'm happy with, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see what Jake Sullivan does with his newfound position. If he is, I do not believe the National Security Advisor requires Senate confirmation, and we will see what his tenure holds under Biden's administration.
Mm-hmm. Well, moving on, we have the new Director of National Intelligence, Avril D. Haines. Now, Ms. Haines was the Deputy Director of the CIA from 2013 to 2015, a relatively short tenure. However, in that time, she did receive some criticism for her involvement in drone programs. You may remember that, of course, Obama is infamous for the supposed drone strikes and the bombings that went on in the Middle East under his tenure, and Ms. Haines did for a period of time oversee these. Not to say, of course, that Trump hasn't obviously continued and upscaled these bombings and attacks and such, but again, another one of the picks I can only, settle for. I mean, again, I think there are better people, more qualified people, but at the end of the day, she was Biden's pick, and if it's Biden's pick, and if the Senate confirms her, then so be it.
Mm-hmm. She has also, being a bit controversial of a nominee, she has seen backlash from the GOP as well, and from some, but not all, progressive Democrats within the Democratic Party. We will see how her tenure goes. Now, moving on to not a cabinet position, but a cabinet level position, Biden's pick to ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield. She has over 35 years of diplomatic experience, having served in Libya and Switzerland. She is a senior vice president at the Albright Stonebridge Group, and she says that with Biden's picks and administration, if they're all confirmed at the Senate, that diplomacy is back after 4 years of President Donald Trump. It's also impressive and important to note that Greenfield did grow up in a segregated Louisiana. She's the only member of her family to have graduated high school and graduated college. And to see her as one of the most important ambassadors that the United States has, as well as being a person of color, is an incredible testament to what can be the American dream.
Yeah, I really do like Greenfield quite a lot. I think Biden hit a home run in the sense of this nomination. I mean, she's not just somebody with an inspiring story. She's somebody who has experience, and not just experience being not to be a little Trumpian, but she's not necessarily a swamp politician. She's someone who has actually spent her time in government doing as much as she can, doing good things and doing good things with politics, and trying to really be a better person for the world. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that Biden was able to find a person who not only serves as an inspiration for younger children or people who, might think, what if I can't do it? Her story is very inspiring. I respect her a lot for it and for how far she's come. It's fantastic. But also on the policy side, she seems like a pretty good person. UN ambassador, I'm completely happy with her as a pick, as opposed to, God, how many did Trump have again?
So many.
Too many, honestly. I know. I really hope that she stays for a while because I am very happy with her.
Anyways, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to our discussions on the Biden administration picks. Of course, whenever he picks the rest of his cabinet, we will be here to discuss them and tell you all about our opinions on all the individuals. Biden has promised to be the most diverse cabinet in American history. Anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next week.